Hi everyone, and welcome to Music 105, Music Appreciation at Centralia College. I'm really glad you've decided to join us. I'm going to be going through all the things you need to know so that you can be successful and do well this quarter. When you log into the course, it should look about like this for the first week. After the first week, I will be resetting the class homepage. So just so you know, after the first week, you'll probably see the syllabus, but this week I wanted to make sure you had all the information you needed to get started strong right on the course homepage when you log in. So a little bit about Canvas and how it works. On the far left hand side, if this is your first time using Canvas, we have the Canvas general navigation tools, and we can discuss those at the end of the video. And then to the right of that, we have the course navigation menu for this course. So starting with the home page, you can already see it, and then the next thing we're going to discuss for the course will be the syllabus, which is the second link down on the left-hand side in the course menu. So let's open up the syllabus. When we open up that page, first you have a link to the syllabus in Word format. That's useful either if you're visually impaired or also if you'd just like to download it and print it out. You can always print it that way. And then below that we have a document that explains how discussions are going to be graded for this class, and we'll go over that too in a moment, but for now I'd like to bypass all that and just get into the information in the syllabus, which is also located in a visual format below those two accessible format documents. That's just another depiction of the exact same information for those who like to see things in a more visually appealing format, but as I said, you can always just download the Word document. It has all the exact same information. So again, this is Centralia College and you're in Music Appreciation class. I am the instructor, Dr. Beth May. If it's a different quarter, you may see a different number than 3524. Sometimes I do reuse those videos a few times. My office number is area code 360-623-8487, and I do have office hours 11 to 12, Monday through Friday. But if you can't call me during that time and you need to speak with me, you can always call at another time, and if I'm not in the office, leave me a voicemail or send me an email. We'll talk about that at the end of the video. But I do want to make sure you understand that I am here and would be happy to discuss anything you might have questions about at any time throughout the quarter. In this quarter, we're going to be focusing on developing your listening skills so that you learn to discuss music with terms that musicians would use, and also understand the context around music that you enjoy or are familiar with. Hopefully, you will both learn why you like the music you like and maybe also learn some music that you didn't know you liked. That's my goal for you this quarter. At the end of the quarter, you should be able to identify selected elements of music. You'll be constructing some pieces of music. You'll be discussing a variety of musical styles, defining musical terms, listening critically, understanding the origins of some styles and traditions, and explaining how cultural and historical events have shaped the development of music. So that's kind of what we'll be doing. As in terms of what kind of work you'll be doing, first of all, you're going to have a quiz this week. You need to do it this week. That will cover the syllabus, grading, and netiquette. And you'll have 3 attempts to take that quiz, so if you don't do as well the first time as you would like, you can go back and take it another couple of times. It is very important because it will help you to really understand how your discussions will be graded and also some other things about the expectations for this course. At the end of several units, we're going to have quizzes, and I'll talk more about those quizzes momentarily. You will be doing one creative project. Just to be very clear about that, when you do your creative project, you will be writing about what you're doing and creating something that shows that you have an understanding of the concepts we've covered this class. It doesn't need to be a masterpiece, and in fact, your use even of technology is sort of optional. I've had students do things as low-tech as just taping themselves banging on pots and pans, but again, the main goal there is to show that you understand the concepts you've learned in class and can apply them. Of course, some people will get really into making music, and that's wonderful too. But I just want anyone who feels pressured by the fact that there's a creative project to know that it's nothing to stress out about. There are going to be a few online assignments for this class. They're going to have an essay, creative project, and a concert critique. Those are considered assignments, and those can be turned in up to 2 weeks late. Only the assignments can be turned in up to 2 weeks late, just to be very clear about this. Other types of assignments, quizzes, and discussions cannot, but assignments, the essay, the creative project, concert critique, those are assignments. You can turn them up to 2 weeks late. However, your grade will be reduced by 5% for each week they're late, and after 2 weeks they won't be accepted anymore. And of course, no work can be turned in after the last day of finals, so I believe you can look at the course or the college catalog to see when the last day of finals is. We're obviously not anywhere near there yet. For class participation, our classroom, as you will, is going to be our class discussion board, and I will talk about that more later. That's a big part of our class. Participation is very important, so it's really important that you understand how to successfully contribute to our discussions and why they're important. I'll talk more about that in a moment. At the end of the quarter, you're going to write an essay. That essay is just a reflection essay. You'll be writing about your experiences in the class and just reflecting on your experience. It's nothing that requires research or any outside work at all. It's just basically a reflection. And then you will be required to attend one live music event and write a concert critique covering different aspects and observations of the event. And I can talk more about that momentarily as well. You can see we have a course overview that tells you more or less what we'll be doing each week, and then some important information here about special needs, copyright, equal opportunity, extended absence, and academic integrity, which I encourage you to please come back and read on your own. We also have some helpful phone numbers here. My number is also at the top of the syllabus, but just in case you forgot, it's at the bottom too. Also the phone number for the e-learning office, student support services, and veterans services. And then finally, because our grades are going to be in percentages, but of course Centralia College uses a decimal point system, I've included a conversion here so that you can see what your decimal grade will be based on your percentage at the end of the quarter. And again, we'll talk a little more about grades in a bit. Finally, if you keep scrolling down to the bottom of the syllabus page, you will see the summary of the course, which lists all of your due dates for the quarter. So that's why after the first week, I will be setting the syllabus as your home page, because it's a really convenient way to just log in and go straight to what you need to be doing that week, since I know that's probably what most of you are most concerned with. So underneath the syllabus, the next link down on our course navigation menu is the assignments. And we can go into the assignments and see what the assignments are. I just discussed them, and we can look here. Some of these assignments are actually available right now, and some of them won't be available until later. All of the assignments are listed here, but if I wanted to break it down a different way, right now they're listed by date, so I can just look and see what is the next thing due. If I'd rather see them listed by type so that I can see them broken down into what kinds of assignments I have, then I would look at it this way. Okay, the creative project, I want to point out, there are two things related to the creative project. Every quarter someone gets confused. It's a long time for now. You can see it's November, but try to remember this when we get there. So there are two aspects of the creative project. One, if I open up the creative project, not sure I'm going to be able to see it. I can't. I'll leave the student view for a moment so that I can show you this information, because you won't have access for a while. So you'll be creating a piece of music, and the instructions are here. You'll have access to those on October 15th, and you can see you have a lot of information. And then there's a rubric for grading that. But if you go to the final part, your instructions say, post your project on the creative projects thread. So you're going to go into the discussion board and post your creative project there. And that is where I will see your project. So let's go back to the student view. When we're in the discussions, which we haven't really gotten to yet, but when we're in the discussions, you will see that one of the discussions is the creative project discussion. So when you do your creative project and you're ready to submit it, you're going to post it in this discussion. Then the second part of your creative, so you'll get 2 grades. You'll get 1 grade for your project, but then your second grade is going to be a grade for the discussion. So we have graded discussions for this class. You'll get a grade on this discussion, and then you'll also get a grade on your creative project. If that still doesn't make sense, feel free to ask for clarification. For the concert critique, you may choose any concert. I would prefer that you try to pick a concert that you wouldn't normally attend to if you, or you wouldn't normally attend if you weren't taking this class. Of course, I have no way of knowing what concert you would normally attend. I don't know most of you, but it's a good idea to try something different. And you know, one thing to think about is you don't have to buy a textbook for this class, so you can use the concert critique if you think you would have spent a little money on a textbook and maybe you wouldn't normally pay for a concert. You could indulge in a concert you really want to go to and pay. On the other hand, the college has a lot of free concerts at the end of the quarter, and I actually try to make sure that the concert critique isn't due until the end of the quarter. I think I'm going to adjust that due date so it'll be due at the very end of the quarter. That way you'll have the option of attending any of our free concerts on the Centralia College campus. If you don't live near Centralia College and there's another college or university near you, you probably would also have access to their free concerts. Most colleges and universities offer free concerts at the end of the year or the end of the quarter because their students need to perform for a grade. There are lots of other ways to find concerts. Your local paper is a great resource. Most towns have event listings if you just look online. The essay I already discussed, and then we have these quizzes. So you have 2 different kinds of quizzes. You have this one quiz here that is over the discussion grading and orientation, but then you're going to have a few other quizzes. I'm going to talk about those a little bit. So when you go to take a quiz, you're going to have to listen to a playlist on Naxos Music Library. So I am going there right now, and I will let you in on what Centralia College's login username and password are. They are the same, and I believe this is it. Let's see if I'm right. I hope so. It's hard to remember which things are uppercase. Yes, I got it. Okay. So when you log in, you'll see playlists on this giant list of things up here at the top menu on the page. If you open up the playlists, you will find the rhythm quiz playlist, the texture quiz, the melody quiz. Those are playlists that correspond to these quizzes we have for the class. So when you go to take the quiz, you'll need to open up, for example, if I'm going to take the rhythm quiz, then I would open up the rhythm quiz playlist. And that would open a playlist for me that then I would be listening to answer the questions in that quiz. Okay, so that explains that. Now moving on to the discussions. In this class, discussions are a big part of the class. They are where your entirety of your reading really happens, or your learning. Think about this. If you were taking this class on campus, we'd be spending 5 hours a week in the classroom together. It's a 5 credit hour class. We would meet for 5 hours a week. This discussion board is our 5 hours a week of in-person conversation. But not only that, it's also where your reading is. So the Department of Education's rules are that for every credit hour that a student receives, you should be spending approximately 2 credit hours outside of class per week. So if you're in a 5 credit hour class, the U.S. Department of Education says you should be spending 5 hours in class and then 10 hours outside of class working on that class. So most of the weeks in this class, your main work that you're going to do is going to be for the discussion board. So let's get into how that's graded. I'm going back to the home page because, or rather the syllabus page, sorry, because that is where I have this document, Guide to the Grading Procedure for Discussions. Again, that's on the syllabus page. So if I open that up, it's probably going to take a moment to download. Oh, that happened fast. I will see this document that goes into how exactly the discussions will be graded. You can see it's rather lengthy. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. You need to come back and read this in detail, but I am going to go over the basic points right now. So every week there's going to be some reading in the discussion board, and then you're going to go back in and start to participate in the discussion. The first thing I want to point out is it's a discussion. It's not a monologue, and when we have a discussion, that means that we listen to others, including other students and the instructor. One of the biggest frustrations I have as an instructor on the discussion board is that students will post something that's maybe inaccurate or incorrect. I will write back and say, hey, let me correct this misunderstanding. Actually, it's this other thing. And then other students don't read what I write, and they just agree with their classmate who actually said something that was incorrect. So make sure you read my feedback. The other thing is, a lot of the time you're going to be asked to pick out music to discuss, and you need to read your classmates' posts first, because if somebody else has already picked the piece of music you wanted to discuss, then you're going to either have to pick something else, or comment on their post instead of starting a new thread. I don't want to see 5 people picking the same piece of music and writing about it without reading what each other say. That's not a discussion. That would be like if we had class and you just walked into the room, said some stuff, and then left. And then came back maybe 20 minutes later and said something else. So I understand some classes, the discussion isn't a real discussion. But in my class, we're going to have a real discussion. But you'll find that it's fun, and your classmates have a lot of good things to contribute. So the short version of how discussions are graded. Although you will get 100 points maximum for each discussion, you will get a maximum of 50 points for each post. And within that, you'll get a maximum of 25 points for each item. So I'll go into a little more detail about that, but that's very important to understand. Each discussion is 100 points. You can't get more than 50 points for a post. It's impossible. So it doesn't matter if you write 50 pages, you'd get 50 points on one post. And each item is worth 25 points. So again, that's like a idea, a concept, a question. If you go on for 20 pages about one idea, you'd still only get 25 points. Keep all that in mind. As long as you make your first post by the due date, you will get points on that discussion. And it doesn't even have to be a long post. If you've got a really busy week and you don't have time to write much that week, you can post a sentence and then go back in later and add, because you can keep adding posts for up to 2 weeks, and I will keep going in and grading them, and you can earn additional points that way. Now do keep in mind, I am not a robot, so you might add additional points and it might be a few days before you get, or you might add additional posts and it might be a few days before you get any points for that, but I will go in and grade them eventually. Okay, let's go into a little more detail about that. I have some examples. So the first thing I look at when I'm looking at your discussion posts is how many items there are in your post. And I will say another thing that's really helpful for me is if you break your post into paragraphs. So if you think something is a separate item from something else, please put them in separate paragraphs rather than having one long paragraph with 5 different ideas in it that you expect someone to know were 5 different ideas. So make sure you break things into paragraphs. It also makes it much easier for your classmates and I to read what you have to say. So your questions that you're asking could be about the reading, or about some topic we're discussing, or maybe about something someone in the class posted. A response could be a response to a question or topic in the reading. We don't have a book, but reading. Or anything else that I might have posted, or a classmate might have posted. And then ideas would be like something new. But it all needs to be relevant either way. So the first thing I do is look to see, is it relevant and is it thoughtful? It's pretty easy to be relevant. You just need to stay on topic. And as long as you do so, it's relevant. It looks like my formatting got a little funky. Going to a Mac. Sorry, okay, now we can see everything. So most of the time it's pretty easy to stay on topic. And if I see that someone's going way off topic, I'll try to butt in and make sure that we don't go too far afield. You also need to say something new. So the first thing is, if you just repeat something that has already been posted, that's not going to get you any points. And if you just say something that doesn't really add anything to what's being said, that would also get no points. For example, just saying I agree, or that's a good idea, you wouldn't get any points for that. I mean, it's fine, it's nice, but it doesn't help us learn anything. For something that's more like 1 to 12 points, such as this example here, you'd go into more details, you'd give support and explain yourself better. Maybe you'd use a quote, maybe you'd just add more detail so that we really understand what you're thinking. And then a 13 to 25 point item, again, this would be the maximum for one item, would show that the author has really thought about what they're saying and gone into detail and thought very clearly about it. So right here we can see an example of a 13 to 25 point item. I would definitely give this 25 points. It is several paragraphs and it really goes into detail about what this author is writing. I am not going to read it to you, but please, especially if you are visually impaired or if you just can't read as fast as I'm talking, come back in here and read these examples because they will help you both when you go to do your discussions and also when you take the quiz. In fact, I would highly recommend that you print this out so that you have it in case so you want to refer to it when you're taking your quiz. All that would still be one item because it's still all on one topic, so I could have added some more on a second topic and gotten my full 50 points. But again, remember, that's 50 points. Then I'd have to add at least one more to get my 100 points. I also want to point out that, you know, there are people who don't really like to go into a ton of detail, or they're just not very vociferous people. They're, you know, they tend to keep their ideas short. That's okay. You could write 10 point posts and get 100 points. You could write 25 point posts and get 100 points. It doesn't matter how many posts you make. I don't have any rule restricting you from posting many times, but you just need to make sure that whatever you do post does at least contribute something new to our discussion. So that covers the discussions. A couple other things I want to talk about. First of all, the grades. If you want to see how you're doing in the class, you can open up the grades, and that will show you all of your grades for the class. One really cool thing about Canvas, which most of you are probably aware of, but if you've never taken a Canvas course before, you might not know this. If you want to test out different grades, let's say we're getting toward the end of the quarter and you want to know if you can bring your grade up to whatever you were hoping to achieve, one way to do that would be just to type in possible grades, and then it'll show you a projected total, so you can see how you would do based on what grade you guessed you were going to get on future assignments. That also saves you time because if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you suddenly want to know whether you can get an A in the class, you can always come in here and self-test your grades yourself and see how you would do. And then to go back to what your actual grade is, you would just revert to the actual score. You can also see a list of the people in the class by clicking on people. I'm not going to do that. And then let's leave the student view so we can talk about how you would contact me via email. So if you need to contact me via email, you would go down the main Canvas menu to the inbox. And once you entered your inbox, you would be able to write a message. So let's say I wanted to write a message to people in this class, someone in this class. I could go into this class, I just select the course, and then if I was writing a letter to an email to my instructor, I would click on instructor, and that would be me. So I would type, or I would select my name and type my message, and my computer is responding very slowly. Then I would click send, and that would send me a message. Again, slow computer today. Okay, so that covers that. I also want to mention one other thing. I showed you Naxos Music Library. This is a great resource in addition to having playlists for your class. You actually have access through Naxos Music Library, you can see, to 2 million tracks. So if there's any music you are interested in listening to, or if you just want to browse around and see what's here, there's a ton of music here, and it's high quality recordings, and it is free as a result of your being enrolled here at Centralia College. So that's a wonderful resource. The only downside is we currently have a five user license. So when you go to take your quizzes, the other issue that you could run into is if you wait until Sunday night and the quiz is due Sunday at midnight, you may find that there are too many people logged in at once and you can't actually access the playlist. So for that reason and numerous other reasons, I would recommend that with this course, even though almost everything is due on Sundays at midnight, I would highly recommend that you make sure you don't wait and put things off to the last minute. Because, whenever you're using technology, you always take a risk that things are not going to go as planned. Maybe you have a power outage, maybe your internet is down, maybe your computer breaks, and if you wait until Sunday night to do your work, you're not going to get it in on time. And as I said before, discussions, if they're not turned in on time, you will get a 0 no matter what you do after that. Quizzes are the same. So you need to make sure you plan ahead. And I will also say, if a student emails me on Sunday about an emergency they're having on Sunday, and so they can't get their work done on Sunday that was due on Sunday, my response will probably be, you had a whole week to prepare for this. This class is supposed to take 10 to 15 hours a week of your time. Again, that's as per education department rules. And so, that would mean your entire day on Sunday, and that's not a very pleasant day for you anyway. Plan ahead, don't put your work off, make sure you try to get things done on time and preferably ahead of time. Alright, I think that covers just about everything for the class. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you all. If you do have any questions, please send me an email, call me, or as I said, just go into the discussion board. You are welcome to post questions about the class in the discussions. And then you'll get points too, so why not? I'm looking forward to learning who you are, and I hope we all have a wonderful quarter together.